ready to begin painting one of our master watercolor copies. We learned so much by doing this that it's really very helpful for us. So you can see I have my color master watercolor there, and I have my toned here and my list of what I need to do and in what order. Because I don't want to ruin my book, I've grabbed a piece of clear plastic and put it over the top of all of that so that when I splatter and splash around, I don't have to worry that I've just ruined one of my favorite books. So that's what I have done there. Okay, now I also have a stack of paper towels here to blot on. Some people use a roll of paper towels and they put the entire roll here and they blot on that, and then when that's full they rotate it, and when the whole outside is full they just pull off the outside of the paper towel. So that's another option for you as well. Okay, I am starting with the background, and I am just going to mix some yellows, and because I know that that yellow is not pure yellow and it's got a little bit of reds or oranges in it and it's a little bit muted, I'm just grabbing some of these other colors to kind of mute it a little bit. Now this is a little strip that was cut off when I was getting my sizes here, and I find that's great for testing colors and seeing if I like that. That actually feels a little bit too orange. I want that to be a little bit more there. That's a little bit closer to the color that I want. I want two colors here. I'm doing a wet on wet wash. So I want a lighter yellow for one color and then more of an orange for another color. So there I go. I've got my two colors there and I'm ready to do my wash. As I put this on here, I want to follow that edge along very well because this is what is making the shirt, is me painting this. Notice that even though this is a defined edge, I'm not using my tiny paintbrush because I've got a large area of paint that I need to take care of here. Now on the original, the artist masked this, but mine is so tiny that I'm just going to paint. Now let's see, I don't care if that goes behind in the dark area. I've got to keep this all going, keep this wet so I can do my wet on wet. And I come down here and I want to make sure that I have the values in the order that they have there. I've also got to watch this area here. Now because I've got this other wet on wet going, I don't want to lose that. I'm going to make sure that it stays wet. And I'm not going to go into exact detail with that yet because I know I've got another layer to put over it. And I need to work my way around here because I'm going to lose some of this. But I know that that color can go in here a little bit. And that's part of what makes it interesting, is that she's combined some of the values and the colors. No, I'm getting stuck in the minutia and the little details, and I need to watch that because I've got to get my wet on wet here, or I'm going to lose that time. You may want to blot or use the side of your brush. And it looks like it's starting to dry a little bit there, but just bring it up here a little bit. It's almost just a little bit more pink in there. So instead of mixing the color, I'm going to add some of that red in while it's wet to give it a little bit of texture. follow through in there. And it'll kind of bleed and combine as the color mixes, or as it dries. It'll keep bleeding and combining there. All right, so that's a good start to my background, but in my notes I can go down into the shirt. So I'm going to switch to my round that's got a nice point on it and get some of these things in on the shirt so that that continues to come in, and I have some of those same values, same colors anyway. Now there are, when we trace, we knew exactly where her lines are. I'm changing this because I had 3 lines in a row exactly the same. Sorry to interrupt that, but I don't want to look like any of my brush strokes are like little soldiers, so I had to fix that real quick while it was wet. Okay, even if I don't get my strokes exactly the same place hers were, I need to at least attempt what she did so that I can learn from the masters. What's the point of not trying to repeat what they did if you're trying to learn a great way to do something? It's already in front of you that somebody did something really, really well. So that is what we're trying to reproduce here. Now already that is dry, so I'm getting a second tone on there, which is quite interesting. I'm going to make sure this is already down here, so that works out great there. All right, I want some of this value down here and this color so that it feels like it's going behind the arm. So first I'm going to get that arm edge there. It's a little bit too bright yellow. I picked it from the wrong spot, or else it bled in my palette into a different area. So I'm going to tone that down with some of these other values. And I've got a couple of different shadow lines here, but I'm going to get the one that his arm is casting. It's a shirt there, but his arm is casting a shadow right there. So all of this is in shadow. There's a little bit of the white showing through just for continuity's sake and to keep your eye moving. And grab a little bit more pink. As this moves down through, I'm going to kind of change that. Looks to me like the value of this shadow right here is not as dark as the value right there, so I'm going to lighten it. Okay, I'm going to move on down, get this shadow. Now as I move down, that changes from pinks to a very neutral, almost purpley neutral. A little bit warmer. When you put warmth into a shadow, it makes it feel like it's backlit, so that like light is bouncing off objects that you can't see and coming into the room. Or onto the surface. Because I put that color there and this was wet, I want to make sure that that feels like it's continuing on. All right, I want this to dry up here. I the next thing is make sure it's dry before you begin the face and the arms. So because I'm waiting for that to dry and there's nothing around this area here, I'm just going to keep working this area here. Now, as I work these shadow shapes, these little creases, I can see that they are darker than these over here, and the amount of water I have on my brush makes that impossible. That's not going to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me a darker value, test that out, and then because that's wet, I can drop that in and it will continue on. And now I'm going to use that up here. It is a lot of looking back and forth between your original that you painted, or not, between the original that they painted and what you're painting. But I think we learned so much that it's totally worth it. You'll notice I'm kind of shaky today. I don't know if it's the medicine I've taken or what it is, but I'm kind of shaky. But if you find yourself shaking, I just keep working on mind over matter, and I just think of the end of my brush. I just concentrate on making that do what I want, no matter what my hand's doing, and it generally will work out. Knock on wood, huh? Okay, this one feels a little bit purple, but I don't want it too dark. A little bit dark. I'm going to add some more water. You see over here, we've got a couple little lines that help us a little bit warmer. Now, some of your books may have the information that an artist will tell you how to do it, and that can be helpful. If you're not doing the same size, it may not be as helpful as you'd like it to be, but it can still be very helpful. That feels cold. I know that's still wet. I cannot put some of my sharp edge lines on there or they will bleed out and they will not be viable. Okay, this part is feeling drier. This part up here is drier as well. So I'm going to come back up and work from top to bottom so that I don't accidentally smear something with my hand. And I need, again, those warm colors in the oranges, it looks to me like. So I'll compare that. That feels pretty good. If an area is white, I need to make sure I leave it. But if it has a red or a brown, it doesn't matter if I have this color over the top of it because it's darker and I can paint that over the top. So all I'm doing now is as I'm painting, I'm just watching to make sure that I don't accidentally paint over something that should be white. And that does simplify things as well. Get my neckline here. There's an area of white there that I want to make sure I leave. And then the rest of this area actually all has some kind of a value to it. It's a little bit more red down in here, but I'm going to try to get some of this in and then come back while it's still damp and add that red. Got to keep the glasses. Whatever you're doing, try to just make sure things are the right shape, Even if you think, I know that's not going to be the right color, just make them the right shape now, and it will help you as you're painting to get all of these things in. I'm having a hard time seeing some of that. It's just not coming through. Part of that nose has a highlight on it. Part of this lip with the mustache has a highlight on it. I also don't want to just obliterate everything by just painting a big swash over it, so I just got to make sure that I can see what I'm doing here. So I can see that this bottom lip has some of this color on it, so I'm going to put it on the bottom lip but not the top, otherwise I'll lose where that bottom lip is. And I want to get some of those reds in there. Oh, it's already dry. Come back in and get that red down in there. This may feel a little bit weird right now until I get a couple more layers on, but it'll work. Okay, I'm going to move down and move a little bit more on here. I need some darker values in there, and I don't want to completely cover everything that I've already done. I'm trying to, whoops, well I was lucky. I'm trying to get some different colors and values in here that still help define this shirt. And it looks like there are more pinks as well. So now I'm treating the background. Now I could blot that if it felt too bright, but I could also just water it down a bit and drag some of that color. Now as I'm painting, I want to make sure that I define the edge of that shirt. I'm grabbing some of those blues in there. So that it defines this. Grab some. That's a little bit too dark of a green. A little bit of green, and then I'm back to my other colors because that's not quite working. There we go. Sometimes you define an object by what you paint next to it or what's around it, and that's what's happening here. I'm defining the arm by the other areas that I'm painting. linking some of these shapes. And my shapes weren't, kind of got away from me. They're not exactly her shapes. I'm just going to move on. Now there is a darker shadow there, but I need to put some value on this arm, and I have the right color here. This top part of the arm is white, so I don't have to worry about those colors bleeding in there. I'm just going to put this value in here. Watching carefully the way the original was done. If I have my drawing and my painting doesn't exactly match my drawing, it's more important that I make sure that I get my drawing correct, or my painting correct. So you may be making small adjustments as you paint. And I need some of that value in here too. Way in here it's going to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to add some of that. Some of this yellow for reflected light under here. Now in my original, this corner over here has some blues and greens, interestingly enough. They'll kind of blend there. Okay, this is all wet. The face is not quite dry yet. If I touch it, it's still cool. By lifting it a little bit, I can see reflection. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm still going to work my way down. I don't want to work right here next to these arms because those are still wet. So now I'm going to come down here to the belt area. And let's see, I've got part of this. Now I need to refine. If I put this color there on that one, and then I paint this one, they'll be linked. Visually, your brain links them. So it says, ah, I see that those two are working together. So I'm going to put a little bit of that there as well. You can see there's just not a lot going on right there, and I don't need a lot going on. His pants are pretty much done. I don't need to outline everything. Okay, I'm going to work on this little shadow over here while all of that dries. And that is kind of a dark green yellow. Let's see, I can see a gold color in there as well. I'm going to make sure that I don't fill this whole area in, but that I leave some things. I'm going to continue that. I want this to feel like a cloth sticking out of his pocket. I want this to feel like this shadow of the stone right here. I'm gonna, as I paint, I don't want to paint solid, I'm gonna give that a little bit of texture. And I'll probably go over it more than once. Okay, while that is drying, I am going to put some really fine lines here. I'm going to use my hand to brace myself. I want to make sure I don't stick my hand in that. I think I'm going to turn it this way so that I don't. And I can also practice on a paper to make sure I know what I'm doing and that it's not too thick of a line. Sometimes it helps to keep your pencil in the same spot and move your board. And I generally do that by pulling my board. There's kind of a double line in some places here, so that's why I'm going over it again. And I'm trying to keep it rough so it doesn't have to be a smooth line. And let's see, I'm going to grab, color should change. I don't want the color to be the same top to bottom, side to side, so I'm going to change some of those colors. I want that to be rough. And then it comes down into this line. So up here, it's darker than what's behind it, and down there, it's lighter than what's behind it. But you can see visually, it's the same line continuing on. Okay, I'm gonna have to take a break there while that dries so that I don't mess everything up, and then we'll work on that more.